It's the George Plaster Show. 30 years of the best sports talk in Middle Tennessee, featuring Tennessee Radio Hall of Famer George Plaster, Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame coach Watson Brown, and young guns Billy Derrick and Michael Cindric. And now, here's your host, George Plaster.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome in on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon in Nashville, Tennessee. We are in January, but we've still got a lot of football to get into, a lot happening on the show. So let's get right to it. Let's head up to the plateau. Say hello to Coach Watson Brown. Watson, how are you?
George, I'm doing great. Beautiful day. Now this is a different kind of day in January than we usually get, a warm day. So I love it.
Yeah. How about that?
Yep.
Let's enjoy it while it lasts. Watson, I've got a dream, a little bit of a dream that I want to see play out. And I think Bill's Mafia will really appreciate this dream. You ready?
Yeah.
Number one, like 100% of decent human beings out there, I want to see Hamlin make an amazing recovery. And in the update that we're about to share with you, there is some good news in there. Watson, I guess I've got this one little dream that I want to see. Number one, obviously, I want him to get well. And when he gets to a point where he's coherent and he understands what's going on, I want to see a camera that's in there with his reaction when he finds out that close to $7 million has been raised for his toy fund. Man, there's nothing better than hearing that.
Nope. That would be the biggest uplift the young man could possibly get, other than seeing his loved ones first time he opens his eyes to see his close family, if he's married, whatever. That would be one, but that would be a close one right with it.
Yeah.
And again, we talked about it yesterday. It's growing fast. It's America. It's what living in this country is all about. And that's why a lot of people want to get to this country. We do a lot of fussing and fighting in this country that we can do better. But man, a lot of folks want to get in here as fast as they can get. And this is why. It's the people. It's the proud being an American and wanting to help another American, George. I think that's it. I think that's it in a nutshell. And this thing's going to keep growing. It's not done yet.
I love it. I hope if and when he's able to awaken, if that's the right word, I would like to see his reaction when he realizes how many people cared enough to put $7 million behind his toy fund for kids. Man, the more I hear about him and the more I read about him, what an exceptional human being.
Yeah, he's very sure seems to be. And just people immediately just loved him. I mean, people just talked about him immediately and everybody gravitated to him. And that can't be fake, George. He's got to be a special young man.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get to what we start every day during football season with, and that's Terry McCormick, his daily Titans update. Of course, Terry works for Main Street Media, and he joins us to talk a little Titans football. Terry, how are you?
Doing well, George. How are you?
Can you imagine when it hits him, when he does awaken, to hear that close to $7 million has been issued to him and this drive that he has for toys for kids? Man, I want to see that. I want to see that bad.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's amazing the way people have stepped up. You know, the Bills Mafia, as you call them, They have a reputation for being very supportive of charities in times of need, and certainly they and many other people all around the country have stepped up and helped out in this regard, and that's just wonderful to see.
Okay, Derrick Henry spoke today to the media, and he sounds like a guy who's headed to Jacksonville to get a win.
Yeah, I think having a week off, he said he feels rested and kind of recharged. I think he's ready to go back home. He's from Yulee, Florida, which is not far from Jacksonville in that North Florida area. And he's traditionally had some great games against the Jaguars over the years. And my guess is he'll need another one if the Titans are going to be able to pull off any sort of upset Sunday down there at Jacksonville.
By the way, Terry's going to rejoin us at 3 for another of our award-winning Titans State of the Unions. Terry, I guess we do have to admit, not many State of the Unions when you win 8 in a row or 4 out of 5. The team has lost 6 in a row. And when Jacksonville came in here a few weeks ago, to me, that was when all the bells went off because they torched the Titans secondary, in particular in the second half.
Yeah, and they took advantage of 4 Tennessee turnovers in that ball game, and it was a game that the Titans could have won and probably should have won. And had they won that game, George, they basically would have sewn up the AFC South right then and there. And by not doing that, you've seen how far this thing has plummeted over the last month. And now they're in a situation where they're having to fight for their playoff lives. They're starting their 3rd quarterback in the last 6 weeks. So it really is amazing to see how far this thing has fallen and how fast.
Terry, talk to me a little bit about the Mike Vrabel you deal with. This appears to be one of his biggest strengths, is going into foreign territory where nobody gives him any chance. They've lost 6 in a row. They haven't won a game since the Nixon administration. That was supposed to be kind of funny. Wow, I hear crickets. Maybe it wasn't as funny as I thought it was. They haven't won in a long time. I would think this is where his biggest strength will show up in their locker room.
Yeah, I think so. Vrabel is the type of guy that, seems to be able to get a lot out of a team, especially when it's that us against the world. Everybody here is family and, got a job to do and that sort of thing. That seems to be the approach that he uses that gets this team to buy in best. The biggest problem he's got right now is, he's fielding basically half a team in terms of what they started the year with. I think they have more than 20 players on injured reserve, which is just absolutely insane if you're trying to compete for a playoff spot. But Vrabel does seem to have that knack for doing that. He's kind of lost his rabbit's foot of late, but it's not too late for him to right the ship if they can win Sunday or Saturday night, I should say, in Jacksonville.
When you say he's lost the rabbit's foot, Terry, could anybody have acquired it?
No, I don't think so. I think that this roster was so beaten and downtrodden, and when you lose your quarterback on top of that, it just compounds things. And I think that when you're talking about being so limited in what you can do because of the personnel that you have on the field on both sides of the ball, I think it's a testament that they've even been able to stay in some of these games. Really, I do think they're going to have maybe what you call a puncher's chance against the Jaguars on Saturday night because they're going to have most of the elements of that defense back. It appears they're going to have Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry. Looks like they could have Amani Hooker and Christian Fulton back. So those elements returning certainly can make that defense a little bit more formidable and give Shane Bowen, more things that he can call, more things that he can do to try and, mask the problems that they have and cover up some of the weaknesses. So, that probably is their best shot in terms of how they go about this.
Terry, we'll look forward to seeing you at 3:00 for the dreaded Titans State of the Union.
Yes.
See you then. That is Terry McCormick's Daily Titans Update.
Yes, it is, and it's been brought to you by the great folks at Hit After Hit, the official shirt provider of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night. Give them a call at 615-399-2287. That's 615-399-2287. You can also find them online at hitafterhitonline.com. All right, let's get to the update today. A lot of NFL, a lot of quarterback situations going on. We start with Damar Hamlin, though. He remains hospitalized in critical condition, but overnight he showed, in quote, signs of improvement. According to the team, they said that he is expected to remain in intensive care as they continue to monitor and treat him. And in terms of the Bills and their practice situation, they will hold meetings and a walkthrough today, but it's going to be a slower paced practice without pads, and they'll go through plays without any physical contact of sort, which seems appropriate.
Watson, how hard do you think it's going to be for them to ratchet up what they need to play New England on Sunday, even though it's at home? Given what they've gone through, how in the world do you do that?
Well, I didn't do it very good. So we had kind of lost our stinger through the Chucky Mullins piece. It was late in the year, just like it is now.
Yeah.
So hopefully they'll do it better than we did, because I didn't seem to handle it very well.
For those of you who are watching live, if anything else breaks on this young man's condition, obviously we will pass it on. Things are very vague. Basically, what we're telling you is through a young guy that is
sort of his agent slash family.
Yeah.
So, and he's really been the guy giving the updates. So,
yeah.
But ESPN really hasn't. They've stuck with at least at their ticker. He's in intensive care. So that's the latest there on Damar Hamlin, and of course we will keep track of that if anything happens. But we've got NFL stuff all around the league with quarterbacks, sort of a quarterback carousel. The Jets are apparently not going to give up on Zach Wilson, though, after only 2 seasons, according to head coach Robert Saleh, who insisted that the organization is going to do everything through hell or high water to maximize his potential.
Watson, the way I interpret that is, if he were a 4th-round draft pick, out the door, but he's the 2nd pick overall, so they're not about to admit that they failed on this.
Nobody does, George. Go back and look at the history. Nobody does that. You keep those guys around till you're absolutely sure they can't get it done. Look, I mean, Marcus Mariota, very high pick, same thing. I mean, you just Vince Young. It's all of them do that. They can't give up on that kind of investment, as we call it.
But here's the part, Watson, that I don't get right now. I think he's lost that locker room. And to me, not only does he have to get better as a quarterback, but he's got to spend the offseason regaining those guys' trust.
Oh, absolutely. And I would think they've talked to him about that, and that's the goal. I don't see how that hadn't been discussed, tell you the truth, because it's a must. He has no chance to be the quarterback of this team if he don't regain the trust that he lost with some of those awful games he played, and then remarks after them, just crazy stuff that he said. Very immature was the word I used back then, and I'll still use it. He seems to me like he's got to mature and grow up to be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
If you'll press your SAP button at home, we're now on to numero tres.
Numero tres.
You like that?
You like using your Spanish, don't you?
I sure do.
Well, Jim Harbaugh, of course, is always in the news after a Michigan season ends. Seems like it in the past few years. Apparently, he says he's going to return to Michigan next year, despite all the reported interest from the NFL. There were reports that he was meeting with Carolina and getting ready to go coach with Carolina.
Well, but there's also a new one out there that says that Denver has contacted him to say, we have interest.
Doesn't every team?
We have interest. Would you send us a resume? What does that mean?
There's a point I don't, and Lord, it's not fair of me to be talking about somebody that leaves. I left school 5 times as head coaches to another school. But But there seems to me when you're where you are in that program that you need to nip it in the bud unless there's something to it at some point. I don't see where he gains anything by just letting this go, keep going on and keep going on and keep going on. And then finally at the end of the second recruiting class, which is in early February, he ends it. I don't understand he does this every year. And it just
doesn't that mean
he was in a little trouble. When he was in a little trouble, George, I understood it, but
yeah,
he's won back-to-back Big Ten championships, been in the Final Four 2 times in a row now. I don't know why you just keep letting it go unless you're interested and you want to hear everything. I don't know.
Don't you think that's the answer, that he is torn, that there's a real NFL thing in his DNA?
Yeah, it could be. He could think he's Pete Carroll and go back and be successful after being in college, and go back again and be successful. I don't know. And I will say this. I think a lot of these guys are looking at this NIL transfer portal stuff and saying, man, do I want to keep chasing this animal around everywhere?
Exactly.
And that could be a piece. And if that is the piece, then I get it. It's fair.
If you're the AD at Michigan, it seems to me fairly soon you got to walk in his office and say, I need to know where you stand.
Yeah, and that one's tough. I've been there as an AD too. When your coach is hot, and that's easier said than done. You just walk in there and say, hey, I've had enough, and then he leaves, and you go, ooh, not a good move on my part. So I'm not sure the Michigan AD is going to do that anytime soon.
No, I didn't say he was. I'm just saying it seems like he needs to go in. He needs to show a little more tact than I normally do and just walk in and say, look, kind of tell me what you're thinking,
Well, that's different now than saying, hey, we need to get in or out here. That's different.
I doubt he walked into the AD and said, listen, I'm talking to Carolina.
I don't know. All the guys that I've had that I dealt with that were, when I was an AD, that were coaches, they did that. I never found out one secondhand. They were always very fair about that with me. So now that would bother me, I think, if I was an AD. That I never had it happen, so I can't comment on it. But that would bother me if it gets out that he has already spoken to somebody at this place and I didn't know it. That would bother me.
Billy, for the record, Watson is one of 4 ADs in history that I've ever had a good relationship with.
And that's better than general managers at radio stations.
Wow, nice.
Knew that was
a little cheap shot there.
Oh,
yeah. Little
that is the cheap shot you said yourself. So I just banked that one.
To heck with him. What else is in the update?
All right, we've got more quarterback carousel in the NFL, George.
Imagine that.
Miami has signed veteran quarterback Mike Glennon to their practice squad amid injuries to Tua Tagovailoa and Teddy Bridgewater. I think some people have forgotten about the Bridgewater injury. They need a quarterback.
It came down to Glennon or Bernie Kosar.
And they chose Glennon.
Well, honestly, don't you think Josh Dobbs would have been it?
Oh, yeah.
If he'd been available?
I can't believe he waited as long as he did that we got him. How long was it? 2 weeks?
Yeah, that is a surprise.
To me, that one, when that happened, I said, woo, that's the first break we've gotten here in about 6 weeks. And sure enough, he saved us the other night. And if we'd have played everybody the other night, guys, that game was winnable. We might not have lost 6 straight. The decision was made that I don't care about winning the game as much as I care about beating Jacksonville. Got it. But if they had played Derrick Henry and some other guys, that was a winnable game because Dallas gave us every opportunity. They did not play well at all in that game, and Dak didn't play great. He played one of his back and forth poor games, and we had a shot at that game.
Yeah, they looked like they'd been in Printer's Alley the night before.
George,
what else you got, Billy?
For the next piece, I want to switch gears to the college world.
Really?
This is live breaking news.
Breaking.
Yeah, we talked about Bobby Petrino headed to UNLV. He's now headed to Texas A&M. Jimbo Fisher is bringing in Bobby Petrino, one of the most respected offensive minds in football. So is he the new A&M offensive coordinator with that move?
Yes, he is. And that had been rumored a bunch before. So what he did basically was he stopped off in Vegas, went to the blackjack table for about 2-3 weeks, got to know the dealers, and then hightailed it out.
I knew that was coming. I knew you couldn't pass that one up.
That was too easy.
Watch where he goes with this one.
And let me say this. He saved on parking because he went by way of motorcycle.
Are we ever going to talk seriously about Bobby?
Not really. Not really.
We need to put some respect on this man.
I've got a great line, and I cannot use it.
George, I can see it in your eyes. Don't do it.
It is a great line.
It's not good timing.
No, it probably isn't. Okay.
Let's, George, one more here.
Oh, there's one more.
The Bears will not have Justin Fields available for their season finale. They're going to go with Nathan Peterman.
Good luck on that.
Instead.
Yes.
Try to get their 4th win of the year.
They've really torn it up this year.
Oh, yeah.
So here's what we're going to do, Watson. Mark McGee is in the on-deck circle. We're going to talk Predator hockey with him. Preds got a good win last night against Montreal, and now they embark on a 5-game road trip that ultimately may determine where they're going or where they're not going. Guy will join us in 60 seconds. Please stick around.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665. Well, there has been a little bit of an uptick on the Predator front. Pretty successful road trip to Anaheim and Vegas. And then last night they beat Montreal. Now, don't get me wrong. Montreal is a miserable hockey team, but it's a win and you'll take it any way you can get it. Our Mark McGee joins us for his weekly visit. Guy, how are you?
Center here. I don't know what's going on. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
That was an interesting answer. You got Predator gold on. So
I got green underneath it. So
okay, that's acceptable.
Master's green underneath it. So
very nice. Free?
No.
Okay.
I've gone a couple times. There's nothing free there. So
no, you're exactly right about that. So are you encouraged, or do you think this is fool's gold?
Well, I think the offense is showing improvement. A lot of the young guys like Tommy Novak have come up and done well. Cody Glass, not scoring a lot of goals, but he's been a real aggressive player for them and making a lot of things happen on the offense. And and then Philip Forsberg is actually playing like Philip Forsberg right now, so that's a help too. All those things came. Niederreiter had a great game. All those things are coming together for them right now offensively. You had to win at home with a 5-game road trip ahead of you. But as you mentioned, Montreal, not exactly a powerhouse. They did a 7-game road trip last night, and they've won 1 game of the 7. So,
Mark, I want to show you the stats right now, the standings numbers that are there, because for the first time in a while there's a little bit of a path. 42 points gets you the 8th and final spot, and Nashville has closed the gap from 7 behind down to 4. To me, what it sets up is this 5-game road trip. I know it's a little early to say this, but it could be make or break.
Oh, I don't think it's too early to say it. I think it could be make or break. You know, you've got several teams already out in Western Conference. The Phoenix Coyotes aren't going to make the playoffs. The Arizona Coyotes, the Chicago Blackhawks aren't, the Anaheim Ducks aren't, the San Jose Sharks aren't, the Vancouver Canucks aren't. So you basically got 11 teams vying for those 8 spots. And you got St. Louis has got some injury problems. It's right there with Nashville, and so you know, I think this road trip is going to be extremely important. A lot of people are already counting Nashville out as far as playoffs go, but as David Poyle, he never counts the Predators out, and you know, so I think, you know, we'll see how it goes. You know, they are within striking distance now. Edmonton's playing horribly. Calgary's not playing well. They both lost last night. The province of Alberta was not very pleased, I guess, with the outcome for their hockey fans last night. But so they are within striking distance. You know, so yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, I hope they go. I hope they make the playoffs again. There's already talk about trade possibilities for them, which is not a good sign. Matthias Ekholm's name is popping up. Dante Fabro's name's popping up. He was a healthy scratch last night for some reason. And you know, Ryan McDonough, you don't know who they just got, is popping up. Even Niederreiter had a great game last night. His name has been mentioned as well. So you know, it's hard to say what's going to happen there. You know, as far as that goes. Matthias Ekholm seems to be the big one that people are looking at right now. They could get a lot for Ekholm if they. But you know, Poyle's not one to trade during the season. He's not one to do much trading during the season. So if he does anything, it would be in the off season. It's probably, I don't see him doing anything at the trade deadline unless they are within striking distance or right there on the edge of the playoffs. They feel like they need a little push at the end there.
Mark, let me put it this way. Do you think this 5-game road trip is going to determine whether they're a buyer or a seller?
Yes, I do. And you know, right now, you know, we're talking about possibly rebuilding, that type of thing. And this draft coming up is going to be a really deep draft. Now, they're not going to get Connor Bedard, who really set the world on fire at the World Juniors this past week or two. They're not going to get him. They're going to be dropping down that far. But they could get a pretty good piece to the puzzle with this draft. And if they could, you know, do some trading, maybe a person like Ekholm, they could get some draft choices for that. But this is a draft that's supposedly supposed to be a pretty deep one.
One of the things that needs to be brought up, and you said it to me off air recently. Yeah, David Poyle has caught a lot of grief. Some of it is justified for where this hockey team's been over the last couple of years, but he has been very stubborn about trading draft picks, in particular high draft picks. And so because of that, now they've brought 2 or 3 guys up on that roster who look to me like they're making some difference.
Yeah. Who thought Kiefer Sherwood would score the first goal the 2023 for the Predators? I mean, you know, so yeah, they've got some of the young guys are coming up and doing well from that standpoint. So yeah, they've got some depth in Milwaukee, and that's important. Yeah, he's not going to trade draft picks. Draft picks are his life's blood in a lot of ways, and he's not going to do that if he can help it. He likes to add draft picks, but he certainly doesn't want to trade them if he can avoid it. From that standpoint, he'd rather trade an established player if he's going to make a trade like that. So, but yeah, it's a pivotal time. You know, last year, you know, they kind of surprised everybody with how well they played, and I think that gave David Poyle some hope that maybe this year they would take it up another notch. Well, they haven't done that yet, and he made some offseason decisions like McDonough and like Niederreiter that he added, and you know, so. Yeah, I think he felt like those were missing pieces and might put them in the thick of the playoff hunt. That hasn't happened yet, and we're already at almost the halfway point of the season.
Watson, say hello to Gee.
Hi, Gee.
Hey, Watson, you were right on the money with those playoff games.
We nailed those, didn't we?
Yeah, you got your money's worth on those.
I said all along they would both beat the spread and it'd be the best 2 games we've had.
You hit it right on the money.
And it sure was, man. I don't think I remember any back-to-back games like that. That was college football. That's new college football, Gee. That's the new game right there. I mean, up and down the field, wide open, indoors. When you get great weather late in the year and these things, look out, man. Offenses are fixing to take off. I think indoors is 14 more points in a game for you offensively because everything is just perfect. It is absolutely perfect. And
I hate to jump into football, but I felt like I'd have to give you kudos.
Yeah, I understand the NFL draft. I don't get the hockey draft and how you go about it. I mean, it's so deep in so many ways. And since we made the deep run, how long do you go and just accept mediocrity and just place a piece in here and place a piece in here and bring in a third guy or bring in a second line guy, or I don't understand it, but we hang right in the same spot every year since the big run. And how do you go about, and when do you say, okay, we got to make a move here. We can't stay in this level we're at any longer. Our fans are getting anxious. We got to do something. And then how do you go about that, and when do you go about it? What if we end up just like we did last year? We kind of get in, we don't do anything, we go again, here we go again next year. Is that okay with Nashville, or where do you put it, and how should he go about it?
Well, a lot of experts in hockey, no more than I do, a lot of experts in hockey are saying the same thing you're saying. What is the direction of this team? In 2018, they were probably one of the top 3 teams in the NHL, maybe the top 2, and they lose to Winnipeg in Game 7, and Winnipeg goes on and loses to the Vegas Knights in the next round. But so they were really close then. And 2018 is not that far back, and now they've hit the mediocrity stage since then. From that standpoint, they've lost guys like Ryan Ellis, which the people were kind of surprised about that. But now that was a great trade because Ellis hasn't been healthy since he went to Philadelphia. They got rid of Victor Arvidsson. Eli Tovlanen just recently was put on waivers. He's now with the Seattle Kraken, scored a goal the other night in the game. So, I mean, he's fitting in there better than he was, I guess, in Nashville. So there's been some interesting moves around. But right now, when you look at what to do, can you get people to take a Johansson or Duchesne contract in the summer? So to open up some cap room for you. Because they're really they're not producing like they should be, and they haven't, other than last year, they haven't really since they've been signed. So you try to get rid of them. You don't want to get rid of your younger players. I saw where Cody Glass was being looked at to be considered as trade bait. Cody Glass is too important. He's a young player. They don't need to be getting rid of him from that. So but they've got some guys that they can move around and possibly trade. But you get the Philip Forsberg contract, a huge contract for him that they signed this past year. I mean, I think David Poile really thought this team was going to be exponentially better than last year's team. That's why he made the moves he made and pretty much stayed, other than a couple of additions, he pretty much stood pat on what they had the year before. Because I think he felt like 1 or 2 pieces was going to be enough. Hockey's an odd situation. It's like Edmonton. The last 29 games, they've had 1 3-game win streak. And they've got Draisaitl and McDavid, 2 of the top players scoring-wise in the league. So it's a hard game to figure out sometimes. And and the Predators are 4 points behind them right now. So the Predators can get hot, win 3 or 4 games in a row. We're talking about, well, they're probably going to make the playoffs again. But and they might be a buyer at the deadline. So it's right now it's kind of up in the air. But I think this road trip was, as George said earlier, it's probably the most pivotal road trip they've had. And they've been playing pretty well on the road.
Can you be a buyer and still rebuild in the offseason? Can't you do that? You're not really going to add that much to see how far you can go. I mean, I wonder why you got to make that decision so quick, because last year I think they may have brought one person in at the
wasn't that big.
deadline, and it didn't matter.
Mm.
I just wonder, because I just think enough's enough to me. I don't think the fans want to just sit there and go into another, what it would be, 5 years and back to and stay in at mediocrity like we are. I don't know. It's tough for me.
Well,
I've become a fan, and I can't tell you what to do here. I just don't know enough about hockey.
You start cutting this core, and it's going to be a wild next 2 or 3 years, because there's going to be new players coming in. Look at what the Blackhawks are doing. Look at what some other teams are doing. It's a rebuilding. It's not a pretty sight for the most part. So, but they're right there right now. Let's hope they make it. And once they get back in, maybe things will go well for them. Playoffs are a different season. They're a different season in a lot of different ways. So, we'll have to see how it goes. But yeah, I'm really interested how these 5 games are going to go. And I was glad they're going to go off on a win. That was important to go off on a win like this. I think that makes a big difference. And a big win, 6-3. Offense looked great. I think everybody got a lot of food last night. I don't really try to cash on that stuff, but I think there was like a banquet of food that people got. They want to take the trouble to go get all that. So it was a good night for everybody.
Well, George, to me, there's a point. McGee, there's a point. We've just tread water. And we got to do something at some point. This is such a good fan base. I just don't know how long they're just going to go with treading water.
Well, let me ask one thing on this, Guy. You said that they're more likely to try to deal Johansson and or a Duchesne in the offseason. To me, that's totally backwards, because neither one of them got a contract that anybody wants to have to be saddled with. But the urgency at the deadline to add a piece or two and worry about money later, it seems to me you got a better shot to get rid of people you want to get rid of at the deadline if you so desire.
Well, we thought they'd do that last year. We thought that one of those two might be moved to the deadline last year, and neither one was. I said David Poole doesn't like to do a lot of moving during the season with his players from that standpoint. So, but now looking at the Western Conference standings here. They did a thing with the best players under 25 the other day. I forget who did it, but Dallas had like 3 or 4 players. There were top players. Minnesota had 2 or 3. And Nashville didn't have any. They had a couple under 23, but nobody under the 25 situation. Of course, Askarov is sitting down there as a goaltender. You don't really need him right now, but he's one of those #1 draft picks, first-round draft picks they got. That's going to be a star when he gets up here after playing for Milwaukee for a year. But how do you play him and Saros after that? How he and UC going to play together? Because you're going to have to bring the guy up probably next year after a season in Milwaukee.
Thank you, as always, for the visit. We'll see how this road trip goes. And
I've never done this live. I guess I've never done this live before. It's kind of scary doing it live.
Well, you know what? It just shows how much you've elevated your game.
Oh, yeah. What studio are you in right now?
The home front.
Home front. Okay. It's like it looks good in the background.
Can you see over that shoulder?
Yeah.
What that is?
You got Fulton County Stadium.
Yep.
I don't know the football field. Is that Titan Stadium?
It is.
Okay, and they've got at least 2 autographed baseballs behind there. It looks like a autographed ball.
Yep.
And, that would be Braves, I'm sure.
Could be.
Could be.
Could be. Got a Dale Murphy bat up there.
I have one of those too.
Yeah. Hey, talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, George. Well, that's always good to hear from you. Thank you for your help this week.
Oh, absolutely, bud. See ya.
Mark McGee joining us on the show. After the break, we're going to talk NCAA men's basketball tournament, which to me is an event even the NCAA can't screw up. But Watson, first, we're going to talk a little Jody Jones dentistry. You can talk it even better than I can because you've got a family relationship with the Joneses that goes back a long ways.
George, it goes back to when Jody was little bitty. He would not want to hear me say that. But,
No, he shouldn't.
But
He should charge you for that.
I know, but it does. And his mom and dad, Doug and Lucy, have been great, great friends for, gosh, I don't know, forever. And just great people. And Jody was raised right and is very competitive guy. If I said anything about Jody, he's not afraid to take something on. And when he takes it on, he goes for it. 100%. He's built an unbelievable practice, an unbelievable facility after building that practice. And now it's just grown more and more. He can do anything. I've watched him all the way through grade school, high school, college. When he decided to do something coming up through the ranks, he was always good at it and competitive at it and an unbelievable work ethic. So he's easy for me to talk about. I know the whole history, and there can't be a better dentist in Nashville to go to than Jody, in my opinion.
That new facility Watson's talking about is at 55 Music Square East. If you want an appointment, in particular, if you're new to town and looking for a dentist, 615-259-5100. We're back to talk NCAA basketball tournament in about 30 seconds. I know it's getting colder. You're not thinking about golf. However, if you're planning an event for next year, let me suggest golf through Riverside Golf Links. The course has improved dramatically. It's perfect for hosting a corporate or a charitable outing. They've got everything in place to make your event a rousing success. To get more info, call 615-847-5074 or go online to riversidegolflinks.com. So I learned something a couple of days ago, and I'm looking at my phone to make sure I say this right. The NCAA has a Division I transformation committee. They need a transformation committee for their own organization. But this thing that I had never heard of before has finished its final report and submitted its reform recommendations to the Division I Board of Directors, and they will formally consider those recommendations next week at the NCAA's annual Love Fest. So, Watson, one of the things they want to do is go to 90 teams, which on the surface seems absurd, except when you say, well, there are 41, 42, 43 football bowl games, so do the percentages. But on that committee is Greg Sankey, and he is throwing out the whole Texas A&M card. They were one of the last teams that got the boot a year ago, ended up winning the NIT, and he's on the war path of we need to get more teams in. And the bottom line is, I think it's a dumb idea, but I'm also convinced that the NCAA basketball tournament is so good that even this committee can't screw it up.
Oh, any committee could screw something up now.
Not this tournament.
I'm telling you, yes, it could. You can put a group of people together and you can screw up a lot of things if you don't know what you're doing. See, I say that football's gone too far.
Agreed.
The games that were not any good this year, those 6-6 games with nobody in the stands, George, I don't think COVID taught me a lot. That when you don't have fans in the stands, the game ain't the same. Fans are a big piece of the pageantry of college football. And,
yes.
And when we see those bowl games with 100 people there or so. I mean, it's just no fun. You don't feel good about it. And I just think the 6-6 ought to go away. Now, you translate that to basketball. What you're talking about is probably one more weekend of basketball, correct? That's basically what we're talking about.
That's what it appears to be. And Lee Fowler will be on the show tomorrow. And one of the things he's going to say is they can yap all this they want, but the CBS contract with the Masters is what will be the big sticking point.
Yeah, unless they move basketball up another week and they start the tournament a week earlier. And that's the way you could beat that. And they don't seem to care about how far they move it up. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to help or hurt. It lets another 30 teams go to the tournament.
22
teams go to the tournament, whatever it is. I'm not against it. I'm not for it either. If it's doable, it's okay with me. They still, how many? 300, is it near 400 teams play college basketball?
I want to say it's around 330 D1s.
Okay, 330, and you're sending then what, 1/4 at 90?
Yeah.
That's still okay to me. I mean, when you're doing football, it's a lot, it's higher in percentage that are going. And that's the 6-6 created that. But I'm not as big against it probably as you are, but I'm sure not stomping up and saying, man, this is the greatest thing since peanut butter either.
Well, truthfully, I'm not sure I know where I am in it because there is this part of me that says, look, you can't screw this up. It's too good an event. And, that's that is a factor that, this thing is so good. And the competition is so fierce that the public will buy it. And while I'm not totally for it, I don't know. I don't know until we try it where I would stand on it. How's that?
That 3 to 6 teams that are that bubble that we always talk about.
Yeah,
it takes care of that. And it would get everybody that would have any shot of going very far into the tournament in. But you're also going to add some really bad games probably, unless those teams play each other, George, to the right to then play in kind of like we do Dayton. You just the winners of those 11 games now get matched against somebody else. That might be the best way to go about it. I don't know. The champion team is going to come out of what's already in it. So you add in the 22, it's just letting teams go more than it is up in the tournament or the play of the tournament, in my opinion.
We just had a good question on YouTube in the chat room saying, how would this affect the conference tournaments? And I mean, you'd have to push them back.
We have to push everything back, I think, with the Masters. Yeah. Lee's absolutely right. They've always had to work around. The Masters was the big piece, and they've had to work with that and to make sure their timing's right on everything they do. I don't see but one way, Billy. You've got to back up the season. They're not going to give up those conference championships now. That's not going away. They're not giving them up in football, and yet you're going to get in the top 12 to play, but they're not going to do away with those things. They're not going to do it. It's too much money.
This would mean starting the season another 2 weeks earlier, which I think would make
1
a
week
lot of people happy.
But here's one thing to consider. CBS in recent years, because of the cost, has outsourced some of this stuff to TBS and something called True TV. Yeah. And I wonder if there's a scenario where CBS says, okay, if you're that hell-bent on it, not only will we put more of it on True TV, but we'll create false TV, true and false, and get them all in there. And there is a scenario where this gets CBS out of the picture after all these years.
I think TBS and True would jump all over adding games that they get to
sure The question is, at what cost?
Yeah. And all the ratings I've read are really good for those two stations, TBS and True. They're good. They're better than their normal running stuff. So I would think they would pay.
This show would be better than some of the junk they've got on.
You're on a roll today, aren't you?
I am, aren't I?
You just taking shots at everybody today.
I mean, really, did you even know the concept of True TV even existed?
Only in March.
Without the tournament?
No, but they became famous in my eyes.
I mean, does Brenda ever say, let's turn on True TV?
Absolutely not. I'm the one that says it, and I say it once a year.
In March.
In March. That's it.
It's going to be interesting to see where this plays out. Sankey's role in it is very self-serving because his job and his desire here is to get 14 teams in the SEC in that tournament. Get every last one he can milk out of it. I will say this, Watson, and we'll talk to Lee about this tomorrow. I might be in favor of this if there's a guaranteed number of little guys that are part of that last 22. Because to me, the little guys are what have made the first week so compelling.
Yeah, I agree. But I don't know. I will bet you they don't go that route. I think they're going to say the best ones get in, and we're not going to designate 5 little guys. And if they said 5 little guys got to get in, they've got to have 20 wins. They got to be at this. They've got to have won their championship. I don't know. Maybe they do. All I see here is there's a pattern coming from the SEC. They're adding 2 more teams, and they're trying to cover for those 2 more teams being added. When they went to the 12-team playoff in football, and now they're trying to expand basketball, this is a pattern, George, and that's what they're trying to do. They said Oklahoma and Texas sit there and said, this might hurt us getting in stuff into such a deep conference. Well, we're going to take care of that for you. Here's the way it's going to go down. And so all he's doing is I think he's playing his cards after he put them on the table. Now he's got to play them out.
That's what
somebody just said. If they keep adding games, it's going to be called April Madness instead of March Madness.
You know what? I'll say this.
More basketball.
Do we think it wouldn't work?
No, I don't think. I think those games would be watched.
Yeah.
I think those games are a lot more exciting than the 6-6 bowl games. I'll tell you that.
You could play them in Siberia, put them on true or false TV, and they're going to get watched.
You could put them on Stadium.
Well, Stadium's not high def. If they'll go high def, we'll consider them. Hey, we're going to go to the break, and then we're going to get into Stat of the Day, followed by the award-winning Titans State of the Union. Terry McCormick will rejoin us. In recent weeks, if you care about Tennessee Titans football, this is must-listen-to stuff. Trust me. Now, I want to talk to you for just a second about the folks at Sir Speedy of Berry Hill, and in particular, an old BGA classmate of mine, James Warren. Yeah, it's easy for me to talk because they've done some great work for me. You see some of the signage that I have put out there from the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night, and it's incredible. It's the best. And, they're not just going to do the best for my bowling. They do it for everybody, which is the reason their business is growing the way it is. Go by and see James. Tell him you heard the commercial here on the show, and we're back with more, including Stat of the Day. So do not touch that dial.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports, and then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general: baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised, and of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back into the George Plaster Show. It's now time for Stat of the Day, brought to you by John English Antique Sports and Cards in Shelbyville, 204 Depot Street. They're open Tuesdays through Fridays from noon to 5. Also on Saturdays from 10 a.m. to 5 o'clock. You can give them a call at 615, George, 931-492-4304. That's 931-492-4304.
We have a little problem with that?
A little problem, George. I need to get more organized.
Say that one more time.
931-492-4304. The number's hiding from me.
That's beautiful.
All right, let's get to Stat of the Day, see what Michael's got. There are 6 different NBA players that have recorded a 55-plus point performance this season, the most in any NBA season. How many of them can you name?
Okay. We just had one with Donovan Mitchell in Cleveland. He had a 70.
How do you score 71 points?
I don't know.
How does a defense let you score 71 points?
Well, there's no defense.
I was thinking, though, and I think I heard this correctly, there are 7 different players who have scored 70-plus in a game in their career.
How many? 7?
7, I believe, was the number. Donovan Mitchell, Kobe, David Thompson, I believe, is one of them. He did it on the final day of a regular season with a scoring title on the line. Did I say Wilt?
No, not yet.
Wilt obviously is one of them. Kobe, David Thompson, Donovan Mitchell. I don't honestly know who else. But anyway,
Doncic did just recently.
Okay, but that's a different question. Okay, Luka. So
I thought the question was 55, not 70. Right. Where are you going anyway?
Well, just bear with me. Good Lord.
Lord have mercy.
Just
relax. You focus on just one thing at a time?
Just relax.
We get 30 seconds to do this, and you're sitting here babbling about somebody that scored 70 points back in 2022.
I'm trying to
back in 1922, for as far as I can tell, going back.
Donovan Mitchell, Luka. Those are 2 of them, Watson.
Yeah.
The third is Klay Thompson, who just had a 54-point night.
Yeah.
It's 55 plus.
Ooh, he's not in it.
Oh, that is a problem.
Can you read, George?
Come on.
You're the second person.
He can't read when he's talking all the time. He never stops.
That's the second person on the show that's asked that.
Really?
If a third one asks, the third one might get
ugly.
Expunged. Watson, this is a tough question. 55 this season. Is Damian Lillard one of them?
No.
Okay, well.
What the Embiid, he's one of them.
Joel Embiid.
Embiid, yep.
Embiid. I
He
can't
is
never
one of
say
them.
that right.
That's correct.
But yes, he's one of them. He did.
Okay.
That's 3.
Watson, let's go with Jason Tatum.
Nope.
I don't
like the question.
I don't remember that one.
Is this a big
This
old
one's hard. I don't know that I can think of another one. You're going to have to name some names now.
You know what, Watson? I just noticed in the background, Terry, who's all prepared for State of the Union, is feeding his face. I'm watching it right now. It's disgusting. Okay, let's just go ahead and reveal who they are.
Okay. You got a new buzzer.
Wait a minute.
Anthony Davis. I
don't
even remember that one.
That was pre-injury.
Anthony Davis, Devin Booker, and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo, he did good. I do remember that.
Should have had that one.
Yep.
By the way, hit that.
You weren't
buzzer.
getting that one, George.
Hit that buzzer again. Yeah, where'd you get that?
I got it from a credible
source.
A credible source.
Okay.
Take it back.
Let's bring Terry McCormick in and see if he's finished feeding his face.
Thanks for ratting me out, George. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. What were you eating?
A taco.
Ooh,
really? Okay.
Sounds good right now.
So we don't have to read anything to say that we are officially into Titans State of the Union.
No, we're in it, George.
We're in. Go. Okay. In recent weeks, when we have done this, it has brought some of the best conversation about this football team going. If you care about Tennessee Titans football, you need to listen to this. Okay. Terry, question number 1. It's now been several weeks since John Robinson got fired. What is the latest on how the Titans intend to conduct the search for a GM?
Well, they've been keeping mostly quiet. Ryan Cowden has kind of been operating the controls of the personnel department since John Robinson departed. The search will involve, obviously, Cowden and a couple of other in-house candidates. Brian Gardner, Monty Ossenfort may be in that conversation. Then they'll have to go outside and look at some people. They'll also have to make sure that there's at least one Rooney Rule candidate included on that list. I got to believe that Mike Vrabel is going to have a big, strong say in this. He may not make the decision, but he's going to have a lot of influence in who gets this job. And, to my way of thinking on this, and this is no disrespect to Cowden or anyone else who is inside these walls here at St. Thomas Sports Park, but it almost feels like that this roster needs a fresh set of eyes from the outside to examine it and see who fits, who doesn't, and what direction they need to go.
Watson?
Before we go even further, have you heard at all about the relationship with John and Mike since all this went down? Because I really wonder that
I have not.
If Mike's still tight with John or if they've completely parted ways now, that would be real interesting to know where that relationship is.
Yeah, John has kind of gone on the down low. Haven't seen or heard much out of him since all this went down just over a month ago. And Mike right now is focused on running this football team and trying to find a way to sneak this team into the back door of the playoffs on Saturday night. So my guess would be that any relationship that they have right now is probably on hold until after the season is over, because Vrabel is going to be in tune with everything going on inside the building. And obviously Robinson no longer has that responsibility.
Well, let me try it this way with both of you. Let's say that Josh Dobbs really plays well on Saturday and leads the Titans to a playoff berth. Watson, should that give Cowden the leg up on everybody else because it was his move to get Dobbs?
Was it? We don't know that. Is it Mike's move? My question was asked because I wonder who's really in charge. And to let a GM go when you're in the middle of a season is one thing. But when you let a GM go, when you're in the middle of season, when you're picking people up right and left every day because of all the injuries we've had, is another. And that's why I wonder who's making these calls right now. Is Mike now kind of making the calls, and our guy under John is sending them through? It's hard for me still to know a direction they're going till I see it all work out. And why did this go down? And was Mike a big part of it going down? Or was Mike absolutely distraught when it went down? Which, if he was distraught when it went down, then his confidence in the higher ups, and he'll start putting up a shield in some way. There's still a lot more to this, and we've kind of let it go because we have to let it go. But I'm just sitting back and watching because I think it's going to work itself out, and we're going to see. I still say that is really a powerful move to get rid of John right in the middle of all the problems we were having and trying to find people to bring in for all the injured guys we have. That's not a great time to let a guy go and have to restructure everything that you're doing. Am I off my rocker here, guys, or is it just my thought, I guess?
Well, I don't think you're off your rocker at all. I mean, it's a fair question. I think, basically, I would say the way that they're probably doing it right now in the interim is sort of the status quo. It may not be John Robinson, obviously, bringing bodies in to evaluate anymore, but they have people who are, in the pro side of personnel, as well as scouts on the draft side, that evaluate these people and prospects and say, these are guys that would fit the things that we want to do with this football team. My guess is that Ryan Cowden and the pro side scouting staff probably brought Josh Dobbs to their attention. One of the things that I asked Vrabel the other day was kind of how it came about, because they had no coach on the staff had coached Josh Dobbs at all. Nobody had any knowledge of him other than what little film study they may have done or evaluation they may have done on him when he was a free agent or when he was coming out of Tennessee 6 years ago. So they basically took a chance on this guy from what little film they'd seen, from what evaluations they may have done in the past. His reputation as being a really intelligent, cerebral type of guy. They took a chance there. And, I would have to say that probably Ryan Cowden and his staff were probably the people that were, pointing them in that direction, because Vrabel did say that they examined a bunch of names. The usual way that this works, if you're replacing somebody in season and you're replacing somebody, especially at the quarterback position, you bring in guys, you bring 3 or 4 or 5 of them in on an off day. You have them throw a little bit, you have them run a little bit, you talk to them a little bit, and you find the one guy that you go, I like this guy the best of these 4. And so you assign that guy. But when you're pulling somebody off another team's practice squad, you are absolutely flying blind. You're ordering the product online and hoping it fits. And that's what they did here with Josh Dobbs.
Yeah, and I do think there was a major advantage that he played in this state. I just think that's a major advantage. And people watched him play every week at the University of Tennessee. And that was my feeling. I'd watched the young man play a bunch of times. I've seen him respond the right way to a lot of critical situations. And I remember, Terry, as soon as it happened, I said, ooh, now that is the best move I've seen him make in a while. I immediately said that. And so I think it helped that he did play in this state and there was a background, but it's still, I bring that up just because I think it'll lead to the future. As we talk about where the Titans are now and where they got to go, who's going to be making these decisions in the future? And is it already set in-house that that's what's going to be? We don't know that yet. But if it is, I would say Mike Vrabel has really upped his status in power of what is drafted and what is brought in free agency. If they keep it the way it is now, I don't think it ever looks good when you fire the top dog and then you hire the guy underneath him. I just don't think it looks good. And but to me, I think that's kind of where this is headed right now.
So,
Well, it could be. They seem to have had I guess, a tendency would be the right word to promote from within a lot of times. That's what happened when Ken Whisenhunt was fired and they went with Mike Mularkey as the next head coach. There's only been a few times really that they've done that. They brought in Mike Vrabel at the recommendation of John Robinson, but most of the time they've played it fairly close to the vest in terms of, going with what they have been familiar with and what they know.
So, guys, I want y'all to consider this. In recent State of the Unions that we've done, Terry, you've suggested that they need to be thinking, let's get back to being really good about the time the new stadium opens. And there's certainly a lot of merit to that. But then there's this other side that says, well, you could squeeze one more year out. Tannehill comes back. Derrick Henry's still Derrick Henry. And you could squeeze one more year before you go down that road. Is what goes on Saturday night going to determine which direction they're going?
I don't know that it will 100%. I think a lot of those ideas they've probably been tossing around for several weeks now in terms of what they're doing and how they want to get this thing moving forward. They know that whether they tear it to the ground or whether they bring back Tannehill and Henry and most of this cast of characters that they've had, they know that they've got to get more explosive at wide receiver. They've got to get a better offensive line at almost every position among those 5 spots. And then they've got to have some luck and some good health that they've not had in a couple of years. I think therein probably lies exactly when you examine the cap situation and the rest of this roster, the decision that they're going to have to make boils down to this. Can you afford cap-wise to add enough back to go with Tannehill and Henry for one more year and think that this thing is going to, line up, you're going to be healthy, and everything that's gone against you this year is going to go for you next year and break right? If you think that can happen, then you patch it up, you overhaul it a little bit, and you go on down the road with this group. If you don't think there's enough without adding what you can reasonably add in free agency and with maybe a first and second round draft pick, then personally, I think you're better off tearing it up, picking higher in the draft over the next couple of years and just trying to reassemble a different roster with some of these pieces still. Obviously, you can't get rid of all 53 guys that are on your roster, but I think maybe you go in a different direction and you start to get younger and you start to look for the next guy who might be the franchise quarterback too.
See, George, I don't think they're anywhere close to where they were a year ago. A year ago, we were really solid in the offensive line. Our defense had really improved. We had a go-to wide receiver. Tannehill was healthy. Derrick was getting back. That was a team that we were the number 1 seed. This team right now doesn't even look like that team at all. So I think there's a lot of decisions to make in the offseason. I don't think it has anything to do with this game. I think they've got a lot of decisions to make. And the first one is going to be, what is our next move at quarterback? What are we going to do? Because you cannot go deep in the playoffs and have a franchise NFL team without that guy. Look at everybody that's still in it right now. Nearly every one of them have got a bona fide quarterback. 49ers don't, but most of them do. And the Titans are stuck to me. They've got an older guy that's probably got one more year left if they want to stick with him one more year because of all the money involved. And that's the first decision they better make. They got to come up with a guy. And I don't think they think it's Malik Willis. I just don't. I don't think they do. And if they do, I don't know that they think they got the time to develop him because it's going to take another couple of years to do that. But that's the first big decision to me, Terry, is right there. But this team, to me, Terry, it's not anything close to last year's team. It's not near as good as last year's football. Some of it injury, and some of it we let offensive linemen, we didn't sign some, we didn't improve it. There's a lot of reasons, and of course the quarterback, the big one, but they're not as good as they were a year ago. And so do they think they've got another year with what's on this roster? I don't know that they'll think that like they would last year. They could think that last year. I don't know that they can think that this year, Terry.
Terry, let me add to all of what Watson has given you. Are the Titans, were they caught off guard by how unready Malik Willis was?
That's a good question. Maybe so. I mean, I think they knew he was a project. It seemed to me like that's just a base they left uncovered, because I think when you look at this team and you saw Ryan Tannehill, he'd been such an Iron Man over the last 3 years since he had taken the starting job in 2019 away from Marcus Mariota. I think that was a base they left uncovered, because you need a backup quarterback. There are reasons that guys like Case Keenum and Tyrod Taylor and Nick Foles hang around the NFL for a decade or more. It's because they can come in and play halfway decent football for you over a 4 or 5 game stretch if your starter goes out, so that you don't have to rely on a rookie like Malik Willis, who certainly is not ready for that responsibility. It would be different if you had spent a first-round draft pick on a quarterback and he's your backup, because spending that type of draft capital in the first round is obviously means that guy is your quarterback of the future. But anything past the second round at the quarterback position is a gamble and a project. And that's what Malik Willis is. He wasn't ready to play at all in terms of, being ready to carry a team that, has playoff aspirations if something happened to Ryan Tannehill. And that's why you saw the desperation move for Josh Dobbs. And they're fortunate it's paid off as well as it has. Here's where I want to ask you guys. If you look at the free agent quarterback market, because here's my thought on this. You're probably not going to finish low enough in the standings to get in there to get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud in this year's draft. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Probably so.
So if you're going with Malik Willis, or you're waiting until 2024 to find your quarterback, if you don't stick with Ryan Tannehill, which I kind of believe they're going to stick with Ryan Tannehill because it's $18 million of dead money if they don't, there's a handful of names that are better than the usual suspects that are out on the free agent market at the quarterback position. I'm going to throw 3 or 4 of them at you. You tell me if you say, yes, I'd take that guy as a bridge quarterback or maybe something to build around, or no, I wouldn't. First name I'll throw.
Hold on here, Terry. Stop there. Let's just tease it. Go to the break, and then about a minute from now, we'll come back and let you reveal those names.
All right.
Right to left on your radio dial. Did I say that? Terry McCormick, Main Street Media. Watson Brown. I don't know what media he represents. Yeah, raise your hand. And then
Tennessee.
And then me. Stay tuned. We have more Titans State of the Union. You're going to want to hear this.
How am I going to get to work? My car's totaled.
Skylar, our team is making a call right now. We'll get you a rental car. Don't worry.
That's a relief.
Call us 24/7. We're here. We're going to help.
Year number 2 of the Plaster and Friends Celebrity Bowling Night was awesome. And the reason is simple. I chose Hermitage Strike and Spare. They were amazing. Great food, great bowling, and a staff that's ready to go the extra mile. They have 5 family fun centers in the area to choose from. And for more info, go to strikeandspare.com or call them at 615-824-5665. Okay, we're in the middle of a Titans State of the Union that's about to get really interesting because Terry has brought to the table the fact that there are probably 3 or 4 quarterbacks a little bit better than normal that are about to enter the market. And I know you're going to start with Derek Carr of the Raiders. Keep going from there.
All right, Derek Carr, you guys, yay or nay? Would you take Derek Carr as the Titans quarterback in 2023 if they move on from Ryan Tannehill?
Watson and I are really going to differ on this. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I don't think they can do away with Ryan Tannehill, so I'll stop with that right now. I don't think that's possible. They're going to have to bring him back. But I'm not a Derek Carr fan. I hadn't seen him play well all year long. I thought in the game here when we had him in Nashville, he didn't make the plays he needed to make to win that game, and he could have won the game, and he didn't make them. I'm not big on Derek Carr. I think he's a winner. I think he's a tough kid, but to spend all that money that it'll take, I just nope, that's not me. And I'm sure George is going the other way, but that's not me.
I'm more open-minded about it probably than you are. A year ago, Derek Carr was pretty darn good. And I would put him pretty close to equal to Tannehill. Better thrower, better deep ball thrower than Tannehill. But keep going. Let's go through some of these names.
For the sake of time, I'm going to leave Tom Brady out of this discussion because that's rehashed and rehashed. But the next name I'll throw at you is Baker Mayfield.
Watson, go.
I've always been a Baker fan. I have faded on him recently, but the only way I bring in one of these, Terry, to me is they're my next guy. I'll play with them for the next 5 or 6 years here in this program. And so I'm going to be hard and say, no, but the hard thing is for the Titans, I think they're in a tough spot. I think they're in a really tough spot. They nearly have to keep Ryan because of this money situation. And they're not going to get a high enough draft choice, Terry, to get one of the really good ones. They may have to go the free agent route. I would go Baker Mayfield over Carr. I would do that.
Okay,
yeah.
What you're saying with that is that you've gotten a little more confidence in him because Sean McVay took him and appears to have made some things in a system work better for Baker Mayfield than anybody else has. Couldn't you say the same thing about Derek Carr? That
could, but
something in Josh McDaniels' system has not jived for Derek Carr.
Yeah, even the year before he was good, but he was inconsistent good. And both of those guys I would put in this mode. They've been around long enough now. The next stop might really put them over the top. I think Baker Mayfield has matured a bunch since he came in as the number 1 pick. And I'm not sure the next stop, the third stop after where it would be the 4th stop, but this next stop for him, and George, you might be right. The next stop for Derek Carr might be the one where he matures a little bit more, because I thought he was immature when he came into the league personally. And just saying things and loose and I don't disagree with you, but the Titans are in a tough spot, Terry. Before you even go any further, to me, get you to comment on this, because man, they've got 1 year and they've got to have another guy after that. And do they have 1 year? Will Ryan be healthy enough? And he's a year older, but I know they got one more with him if they want it. And then what do they do? What do they do? I don't know.
You're rolling the dice. If you extend Tannehill with a short extension to give yourself some cap relief right now, then, maybe you kick the can down the road 2 or 3 years, but he's going to be 36, 37 years old by that time. It's going to be interesting to see how they evaluate the quarterback position in this offseason. And with that, we'll go to the next name, Jimmy Garoppolo.
I think Jimmy Garoppolo, I love him because I coached against him for 4 years, and I know him really well as a person and as a player. But I don't think Jimmy is a take you to a Super Bowl guy unless your team is really good. And I mean really good. I think he would be an unbelievable backup as he was to Tom Brady. I think he might be the number one backup in the NFL. I'm telling you, he's a winner. He's tougher than nails, but I'm just not sure he's got that true ability to take you to where the Titans are trying so hard to get to.
Well, first of all, he's been good enough to go as far as an NFC title game with San Fran.
On a really, really good team. That's what I just said.
Absolutely. And
he's got to be on a really good team.
Yeah. And this one right now, he just simply isn't good enough to move that team forward.
That's what I think.
He's a guy that's got to have a lot around him. And what he'll find here is nothing around him other than Derrick Henry. And a couple of tight ends.
We're not the team we were a year ago. We're not. No. We don't have the offensive line. We don't have the go-to receiver, and we don't have a healthy quarterback. But that could be fixed. But there's a lot to do around this team, and it's not going to be a 49er type team next year, I don't think.
Terry, when you say extend Ryan Tannehill, what exactly do you mean by that?
Put 2 more years on his contract, lower his base for 2023, kick the cap money down the road a couple of years, and then he's your guy for the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Yeah, but you're almost getting him close to a new stadium.
Right.
He's going to be in no position to be their quarterback at the start of a new stadium.
Well, he would be 37 years old probably at that time. So that's going to be, or maybe even 38. If he's that age, he's definitely in the twilight of his career. And, they probably wouldn't want to do that, but, the options are limited. With that, I'll throw out 3 more names and you guys can banter those about any way you want. One of them is Geno Smith, who's had a career renaissance in Seattle.
Yeah, where
he's thrown for 4,000 yards, but he's also 33 years old. He's probably a little too old to bring in as your guy. The other 2 are Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones, who actually is, maybe played himself back into the Giants' plans after they declined his option last year.
Watson, I'm going to assume that Daniel Jones ends up staying with the Giants. And if they were to win a playoff game, you can book that.
Yeah. And that, out of all the ones you said, that would be my favorite. He's young. He has all the twos. He has grown a bunch from year 1 to year 2. I really like him. I've loved his competitiveness as I've watched him play this year, even in his first year. But this year, he's the one of all those names that if they pursued one, to me, that's the one I'd pursue. I don't think the Giants will dare let him go.
So, Terry, let me try this one on you. You brought up Jimmy Garoppolo a minute ago. Don't you think there's a likelihood that Belichick will sort of kick that tire, having had some past history with him? And if Jimmy is willing to go back to New England, should the Titans have an interest in Mac Jones?
Honestly, I don't think Bill's ready to give up on Mac Jones just yet. He spent a first-round draft pick on him. So I think he's going to give Mac Jones probably the benefit of the doubt for as long as he can. Now, that said, there were a couple of times this year where he pulled him in favor of former Western Kentucky quarterback Bailey Zappi. So if Garoppolo does wind up back with Belichick, it might make Mac Jones expendable. But I just don't see Bill giving up on a guy that he personally drafted to be the Patriots' future franchise quarterback just yet.
Is there a scenario in all this? Because think about what we're doing here. I mean, you've gone 7 or 8 quarterbacks deep, and Watson keeps saying, and he's correct in what he's saying, they're in a tough spot. And I'm asking myself the question, okay, how do you get out of the tough spot? And it seems to me the only way you could do it is to get yourself into a position to trade up by giving away a chip that you have that other people really want.
Well, there's only two of those. One of them is Derrick Henry, and the other one's Jeffrey Simmons. They need to do everything that they can to keep Jeffrey Simmons around here because he's the linchpin of that defense. I think that, I think a lot of people would mutiny if they traded Derrick Henry at the end of the year. I don't see that happening. But, you could probably throw Kevin Byard in there, but just, he's been a war horse and an all pro, but just by the nature of the position he plays, you can't trade a safety and move into the top 5 of the draft.
Watson, I saw you shake your head, but let me ask this question. Forget the fact that they're going to play a winner-take-all game Saturday night. This team isn't going anywhere in the playoffs, and this team, as it's currently constructed, is only going to go down. It's not going to get better. So don't you have to be open to discuss every option that's out there, including Derrick Henry?
Oh, I absolutely open, but to do it, no way. I don't give up Derrick Henry. He still looks too good to me. You've built a team around him. Your philosophy is around him. You give up Derrick Henry, you completely change your whole philosophy. That's Mike's philosophy. This hasn't been the owners or the John Robinson's philosophy. This is Mike's philosophy. I don't see him giving up Derrick. And that's why I think they're in a tough spot. They got a lot. What it looks to me like they've done, Terry, in an overview here, and I don't know how much longer we got, but I think they fixed their defense in their mind pretty good, and the offense is now what they got to fix. And but
Watson,
the defense
take as long as you want on this.
Shape, but the offense to me it's not just quarterback. There's a lot of pieces they got to fix on this offense.
I agree, Watson. I think that, what you get into, this offense has a lot of pieces missing, starting with the offensive line. And then whatever you do with the quarterback position, as you said, they're in a tough spot. They can either roll with Ryan Tannehill for one more year, try to draft and develop somebody, hope Malik Willis comes around, or go sign one of these free agent guys and hope that they get somebody that's at least as good as Ryan Tannehill was for them for the past 4 years.
Well, and then, Terry, they've still got the problem as a backup. Is Malik Willis good enough to be the backup next year? I'm not sure he is. You get in the same spot.
Number 11 right there, Josh Dobbs, be my backup.
If that's what I think comes out of this weekend. If they win this weekend, he plays well, he's going to be the backup next year. That's what I think. And you can't keep Malik Willis unless you're willing to put a third quarterback on the 53-man roster. You're going to put him on the practice squad, somebody grabbing him. He'd be gone.
Well, I've kind of changed my mind on that. I thought that way at the start of the year because he was such a high draft pick. But I think after you've seen how far he has to go, remember when Baker Mayfield got dumped on the waiver wire, and granted, he had a much bigger contract than Malik Willis. Only one team, the Rams, were the only team that put in a claim for him. Now, that may have been because of his contract, but Baker Mayfield's a whole heck of a lot more NFL ready and has a lot more skins on the wall than Malik Willis does. My thinking is, at this juncture, you might be able to slide Malik Willis onto your practice squad and get him through waivers unless he really shines in training camp and preseason next spring or next summer.
Terry, I most of the time agree with you on this one. I totally disagree. There are going to be a lot of people jump at Malik Willis and say, okay, let's keep him a month. Then let's see what we can do with it. And then the next team says, okay, let's keep him a month. There's no way there, in my opinion, the Titans can keep him on the practice squad and keep him. Too great an athlete. Somebody may try to talk him into playing inside receiver or safety or something. This is a great athlete, and he's not costing you very much money. The difference in him and Baker Mayfield is millions of dollars, and why somebody wouldn't jump on that. That's why I think that's going to be a big decision too, Terry, is Josh Dobbs plays well Saturday, and I think he will. Whether they win or not, I think Josh Dobbs is going to play good, and they're going to have to sit there and say, we got a backup. Now what are we going to do with a third-round pick? I wouldn't have taken the guy in the third round because we're trying to build a team right now, not the future this year. I would have not done that. I think that's another bad decision by the Titans, and not get a really good wide receiver, another one, an offensive lineman. You get a lot of centers and guards right in there now, a lot of them. And I just thought Willis was kind of out of character unless you say, ooh, we stole one, he's our future, and he don't look that. So it makes it look like it was a bad pick to me.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, you don't think that Willis would make it through waivers. Does he have trade value?
Yeah, he might have that now. That's a possibility. That's a possibility. I don't think you're going to get a lot for him, but I think you could trade him. I think you might get a 5th round guy or something like that and trade him.
It would be a losing return on investment there, trading the guy who was a 3rd round pick.
Not if you don't think he's your answer. That wouldn't be a losing investment.
Well, let me try it this way. Terry, privately, do you think they have already given up on him?
I don't know if they've completely given up on him, but he certainly has not instilled very much confidence from them in him, I should say.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
What do you think?
Me, I don't think they've completely, but if Josh Dobbs does this again Saturday and plays as good or better than he did last week, I think he just jumps him. I think this weekend, that's the big piece, is Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Let me try this one. I brought this up, I don't know, a week or two ago. They've had more injuries in the last 2 years than anybody. And to be honest, I don't think it's even close. And I've thought that somebody in that organization has got to be instructed to do some deep dive on what's causing it. You all agreed with that. Terry, do you see any sign from that organization, even though right now they're dealing with, this winner take all game, but come Sunday, if they get their butt handed to them, then they got to start facing this stuff. Are they of the mindset to do that, or are they just going to look the other way?
I think they have to be. I think they have to leave no stone unturned. And I think Mike Vrabel is enough of an answer guy, a guy who wants to know the why and the how. And, as far as what's going on, I think he would want the answers there. And I'm pretty sure that Amy Adams Strunk would like to have some of those answers too. It may be that it's just horrific luck over the last 2 years. But if there is a deeper reason for that, I think Mike Vrabel is going to want that answer.
So, Watson, let's say that everybody wants that. Who do you turn to conduct it? Is it in-house? Is it somebody that comes in that kind of gets treated like crap because, he's the one that's, going to go to the principal and tattletale? How do you even do that?
Well, I think it's 100% Mike Vrabel. I think Mike is the one that's going to dab into this. He's going to look everywhere and say, what in the world is causing this? And he's going to call everybody he can call, look into everything, talk to everybody. I don't think this one's going past Mike. He's going to handle this one. And Terry, I know we're about ready to go here, but I loved it in the press conference the other day when a guy asked Mike, well, do you think your physical style of play on offense has caused all these injuries? Do you remember that ask? And boy, did that crawl all over him. He did not like that question whatsoever. That's why I think he's the one that's going to be looking into all of this and saying, why me? Why us? Why has this happened? And I don't think it's the physical style of play. Even though I think that's a valid question. I think whoever asks it has every right to ask it, but that's not the answer to this. It's not their style, because that's not what's happening in practice and all the different things. And they shorten games. Their style ought to keep you healthier because they play fewer snaps than a lot of these offenses do anyway.
It's going to be interesting. I think you hit on it a few weeks ago, Watson, when we were talking about this, is that nowadays in the NFL, teams they don't have two-a-days anymore. They don't, they don't beat on each other every day in camp for a month. You know, there's very few padded practices during the course of a regular season, and all that's done in the name of player safety. But when you cut some of that out and then you go and try and play a physical style of football, I do think that, you're not as prepared for that maybe as you would have been if you'd been hitting twice a week.
Oh, 100% think that's a major problem here is they've taken all the contact. I've always heard us all as coaches through all the years, the wording was in the summer, pad ready. You've got to be pad ready to play. And what they mean by that is pad conditioning and taking blows and handling the blows and get up and hit and do it again. And you condition your body for that. But when you shorten all of that, Terry, and then you add 2 games on in the last couple of years into the season, that's not a good combination, in my personal opinion. Everybody's having injuries. Everybody. We may have had more, but everybody's having them. And the league better look into this because they're going to hurt this game if this keeps up, in my personal opinion.
Don't disagree.
Terry, it would require Roger to quit counting the 44 million, 43,299,000.
Well, he could just pass that around a little bit and he could not have to count it.
He'd have more time to figure this out. Terry, thank you as always.
All right. You guys have a good one.
Terry McCormick,
Thanks, Terry.
Main Street Media, joining us for our Titans State of the Union. Stick around. When we come back, Plaster Bet of the Day on a 1-game winning streak. Imagine that.
Hey, thank you for meeting with me today. The insurance company has made an offer.
Already? Wow.
They've offered you the entire policy.
Thank you, Blair.
You're so welcome.
Welcome to John English Antique Sports and Cards, located at 204 East Depot Street in beautiful downtown Shelbyville, Tennessee. Their phone number is area code 931-492-4304. John, obviously, I've been blown away by what I've seen at your place. I've now been there 3 times. But for the person who's never been, what should they expect?
Well, we have a 3,000 square foot store, George. Half of it is vintage cards in all sports, and then half of the store is, a lot of people call it the museum, where there's a lot of early equipment and just the history of sports in general: baseball, football, basketball, golf, tennis, and other items.
When somebody comes in there that you know is a big sports fan, what is their normal reaction?
Well, I think that they're pleasantly surprised, and of course, being in Shelbyville, Tennessee, which is a small town that you would never expect a shop like we have to be in. So they're kind of, I don't want to say blown away, but as I said, pleasantly surprised.
Welcome back in. Final segment of the George Plaster Show on this Wednesday evening. It's time for Plaster's Bet of the Day. Hot start in 2023, 1-0. Trying to get to 2-0 tonight. It's brought to you by Bart Durham Injury Law. They are lawyers that you can trust. Give them a call at 615-242-9000. That's 615-242-9000, or log on to bartdurham.com. All right, let's check out what happened last night. Of course, we had a lot of SEC basketball. Tennessee ended up getting a huge win over Mississippi State. They ran them off the floor.
Cakewalk. That looked like a Final Four team last night.
When they're hitting threes, They're tough to beat because they play defense every night. So 96-95, 1-0 start to 2023. Watson, how about that?
He's 1-0, babe. That's the way I look at it. I mean, he was 95-95, so he might as well just say he's starting over. So I'd rather call it 1-0 than 96-95.
It'll get you $7 million on the free agent market. Good right-hander, eat up a lot of innings, go to the post.
Good depth guy.
Good depth. Good guy in the clubhouse.
Great guy in the clubhouse.
Okay. So here's what we're going with tonight. We're going with a Florida that to me is, when I watch them,
inconsistent,
more NIT feel than NCAA feel. But Texas A&M,
they're awful.
Yeah, I'm not sold. The difference tonight, why Florida will cover, is the big kid, Castleton.
He's been there forever.
Yeah, he's a problem. He's a real force inside. Watson, you need to get on that one.
Okay, I'll get off and call my bookie immediately on this one.
You do that. Let me know how it works out. So tomorrow on the show, Lee Fowler's going to join us. We're going to talk a little bit more about this potential expansion of the NCAA basketball tournament, but we'll also get into Tennessee and are they an Elite Eight or perhaps a Final Four? Vandy's 1-0. They beat a pitiful South Carolina last night in overtime. Is this the start of something better or one of the few wins Vandy's going to get this year? We'll talk about all of that and more tomorrow. Billy, you try to behave until then.
I will do my best, George.
Watson, clean up your attitude as well.
That's hard. You know that. But we'll work on it.
Is that a free shirt?
Heavens, no, it's not a free.
That looks like a nice one there.
Yeah, it looks like maybe an endorsement deal.
I wear this in the summer a lot. Golf, no collar. I like no collars in the summer.
But it's not free.
It wasn't free.
Watson doesn't do freebies.
Because I'll be honest, this is a freebie.
Well, all of yours are. What do you mean honest?
We'll see all of you tomorrow.